Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Metzger, and I'm an education program specialist for the Sokolov-Miller Family Financial and Life Skills Center here at Penn State University. Today's webinar covers paying for college, and it's a great session for students looking to better understand their options, parents who are gearing up to send their kids to school, and really anybody who's trying to figure out how to maximize college and minimize cost. This recording is part of the center's bi-monthly webinar series, and it's just one of our free many resources. Our team of financial educators and counselors and student ambassadors offer one-on-one appointments, group presentations to classes and student orgs, and self-paced study modules on Canvas, as well as a mentoring program for students. So there's a lot to choose from. Also, starting in the spring of 2023, we're going to begin offering hands-on small group workshops on money foundations. These workshops will provide an in-depth guided approach to exploring financial literacy. I encourage you to check out our website, financialliteracy.psu.edu, for more information. So let's get started. Right now, the average cost of attendance for students living on campus at a public four-year in-state school is over $100,000 for those 4 years. With that in mind, I think it's important that we begin this presentation by answering the question you see on the screen. Why invest in a college degree? Well, for one thing, a college degree is going to increase your job security down the road. Employment rates are nearly 15% higher for folks who hold a four-year degree versus folks with just a high school diploma. And college, of course, gives you the opportunity to pursue your passions and interests, to take classes that you are really curious about. It also gives you a chance to build a strong personal and professional network among friends, staff, faculty, and mentors. Penn State, for example, has over 759,000 members of its alumni association across the globe. And interestingly, a college degree even improves health outcomes for the degree holder. They're more likely to exercise on a weekly basis, less likely to smoke, and more likely to hold health insurance, making it easier to get the health care that they need. And depending on how you look at it, the biggest return on your investment in a college degree comes in the form of increased average lifetime earnings. Report after report documents the differences in earnings for US adults with different levels of education, and the correlation with more education and larger earnings is undeniable. You might be wondering, am I going to get a full return on the money I put towards my college degree? And reporting from the College Board in 2019 would say yes. By age 33, the typical four-year college graduate who enrolls at 18 and graduates in 4 years can expect to earn enough compared to a high school graduate to make up for being out of the workforce for 4 years and for borrowing the cost of full tuition, fees, books, and supplies without any grant or scholarship aid. So, how much money are we talking about? How much of an investment are we going to need to make in paying for school? That number is really going to depend on a number of factors. These factors include in-state versus out-of-state tuition. Are you a student living on campus or off campus? Are you taking classes online? What kind of meal plan and dorm selection have you made for yourself? Where are you living if you're living off campus? Do you have roommates? Are you a student here at University Park, Penn State, or are you attending a Commonwealth campus? What's your major? Are you taking upper division credits at this time or lower division credits, because there is a cost difference? What kind of fees are you having to submit? If you're part of a student organization, there's probably extra fees that are going to cost you in the course of the year. So with these expenses in mind, it's really safe to say that the total cost of attendance for each student is likely to vary, and some part of the total cost is going to be up to you to figure out. But what I can offer everyone to get started on calculating their total is this Penn State Net Price Calculator. It's an anonymous tool that gives you an estimated financial aid package that also includes an estimated Penn State net price figure, which is the estimated cost of attendance minus anticipated need-based scholarships and grant aid. It's really pretty simple to use. You can find it by Googling Penn State Net Price Calculator, just like you see on the screen here. You'll need to plug in a few pieces of information, including your residency status, your Penn State campus, your housing arrangements, your dependency status, as well as your EFC. That's that index number that you got after completing your FAFSA form. It's used to determine your eligibility for federal student financial aid. It stands for expected family contributions. If you're not sure about your number, but you did complete your FAFSA form, all you need to do is log into studentaid.gov and access your student aid report. If you're not sure what FAFSA is, keep listening because I'm going to talk more about it shortly. Now you're probably wondering, okay, I have an idea of how much this is going to cost me. So what are my options to pay? And there are certainly a few funding sources that you might be able to pull from. We can bucket them into 3 categories: saved and earned money, free money, and borrowed money. Above each bucket on the screen, you see examples of those type of funding. And before I dive into them a little bit deeper, it's important that I point out that these ones here circled in white are what people generally refer to as financial aid. So this includes work study, grants, scholarships, and federal student loans. These funding sources, and this is really important, these funding sources are only going to be made available to the student if that student completes on an annual basis their free application for federal student aid, also known as the FAFSA form. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at this. To be absolutely clear, when we talk about student financial aid, what we're talking about is federal, state, or institutional funding that's managed and dispersed by the Penn State Office of Student Aid or any college's Office of Student Aid. At the federal level, the Department of Education is providing more than $150 billion of financial aid to students each year. Pennsylvania has a state grant program that awards eligible students with up to $5,750 annually, and colleges and offices across Penn State offer both merit and need-based scholarships. The first step to accessing this aid is to complete the FAFSA form on the studentaid.gov website. Now, applying for financial aid is not meant to be a complicated application process or frustrating, but for anyone who hasn't completed FAFSA before, it's definitely helpful to know what to expect. So as quickly as I can, I'm going to try to sum up the studentaid.gov financial aid process from start to finish. It begins when you visit studentaid.gov and you create your federal student aid ID, also known as your FSA ID. If you haven't started college yet, ideally you're starting this process during your senior year of high school. Now, once you have that ID available from October 1st, you can begin completing your free application for federal student aid. That's that FAFSA form. And a quick side note, Penn State recommends that you submit your FAFSA form by December 1st, even though you technically have until the end of June. Now, in the following months after you submit, financial aid packages will become available for new and returning students, and you can accept your student loans or other aid at that point. That aid is going to be applied to your bill, and from there, your only responsibility to keep that aid while you're in school is to maintain what we call satisfactory academic progress. That is to say that you're getting good grades and you are passing and finishing your classes. Each year that you're in school, this cycle repeats over and over and over again until you get to the point of graduation when you off-ramp this cycle and move into student loan repayment if you have student loans by visiting studentaid.gov. I really do hope that this slide drives home this point that your action steps to financial aid begin and end always at studentaid.gov. So now that we're clear about the financial aid process, let's dive deeper into these funding sources that are available to students, starting with the one I know we're probably most curious about, which is free money. So free money for college, that's going to include grants and scholarships. This is money that does not need to be repaid. Grants are awarded based on financial need, and there is always a limited supply of funding available. That said, it's critical for students to fill out FAFSA as soon as possible to increase their chances of receiving the highest grant award possible. The same is true for scholarships. And while not all scholarships require a FAFSA application on file, it's advisable to have one completed for the reviewers to see. It may make the difference in their awarding decision. Now, grants awarded by the U.S. Department of Education include the FSEOG and Teach Grant, as well as the Pell Grant, which is the most commonly awarded grant. It's typically only awarded to undergraduate students who have exceptional financial need and have not yet earned a degree. So the process to apply for federal grants is a bit easier than to apply for scholarships because you're going to be considered for federal grants when you submit your FAFSA application. On the other hand, scholarships are generally going to require you to submit a separate application, so it's really important to pay close attention to those submission deadlines and look to cast a pretty wide net when applying. You want to check out both institutional scholarships and college and department scholarships that are offered at the university, as well as scholarship directories online like fastweb.com, collegeboard.org, and the U.S. Department of Labor's website. There are thousands of scholarships that you can filter through to find the ones that you are most eligible for and more likely to receive awarding on. Now let's get into saved money. We can look at this as personal savings as well as 529 plans, which I'll speak on in a moment. When we first consider personal savings, this is money that you or someone else has saved up specifically for college, oftentimes through employment, through working maybe part-time in high school, or your family has been setting some money aside for you for school later down the road. What's helpful to build up your personal savings for school is to really budget for that. Make sure that if you do have an income coming your way, that you have a monthly budget and that saving is a planned expense. If you're working together as a family to pay for school, creating a spending plan early with your family is very helpful. If you as a student have the ability to work part-time during the summers, during winter breaks, or even during the school year, I encourage you to do so. That's another great way to build up your personal savings to be able to pay for college expenses. And depending on what kind of time you have on your side, you might consider a Roth, a CD, also known as a certificate of deposit, or a high yield savings account to hold your savings in and really maximize the potential to grow those savings through higher interest rates. There's also something called a 529 plan available for college expenses. And a 529, it's a type of investment account. It's a type of savings plan that offers tax benefits when used to pay for qualified education expenses. Typically, this is marketed to parents, and so oftentimes you will see a parent who opens up this account when their child is very young, for them to use the savings later on to pay for college expenses once they graduate high school. And though there are many types of 529 plans out there, they generally fall into one of two categories. There are college savings plans, which work much like a Roth IRA in that you are investing your after-tax contributions into a mutual fund or some sort of similar investment, meaning that the account will go up and down in value based on the performance of the investment options. There's also something called a prepaid tuition plan, which lets you prepay all or part of the cost of a college education. If you live in Pennsylvania, there is a 529 website that you can visit at www.pa529.com to get more information about your options. The next category of money is earned money. And earned money is, I'm sure, what you think it might be. It's money that you get from working. And so when we talk about working as a student, there are federal work study options that may be made available to you. Federal work study is a type of financial aid that can be awarded to you after you fill out the FAFSA application. But certainly, please keep in mind that to be considered for federal work study, you must check the box for federal work study on your FAFSA application. And also keep in mind that federal work study is intended for students with financial needs. So not every student is going to be awarded federal work study opportunity. And the way that it works is that if you have federal work study awarded to you, you can accept it and opt into part-time employment, mostly on campus, but sometimes there are off-campus opportunities for employment, and you will earn funds to pay for your college expenses while you work part-time. There are also opportunities on campus for employment via assistantships. So there are teaching assistant positions, graduate assistant positions, research assistant positions, various opportunities to be able to build up some additional funds to pay for these college expenses that you've identified. If you are here at Penn State, I encourage you to check out the Penn State HR website. If you go to hr.psu.edu/careers, you can take a look at what federal work study positions or regular wage payroll positions are available and apply to those that you see fit. I also want to point out that your employer or your family's employer might also offer some sort of staff or dependent tuition discount or reimbursement. So, for example, at Penn State, um, folks who work here, staff and faculty, their dependents are offered a discount on Penn State tuition. You might work at an employer who offers some sort of reimbursement or plan to assist in paying college costs like tuition, and that's certainly something worth investigating. So make sure you take the time to do that. Now we get into borrowed money as the last category of funds. And this is probably a type of funding that folks are very curious about. When we talk about borrowed money, we're talking about loans, student loans, money that is received when dispersed, but it's owed back to the lender. And in this case, we can look at lenders as either private lenders or the federal lender, the US Department of Education lending out student loans. Private student loans are private, so there's only so much I can say about them, but generally they are issued by a private lender at a higher interest rate. They're generally not subsidized, so interest is accruing the moment that that loan is issued, and they do typically require a credit check. So for students to pursue a private student loan often requires a parent to co-sign on that loan with them. And something to keep in mind is private student loans don't always offer or don't typically offer loan forgiveness or income driven repayment plans. And so managing these loans over time can sometimes be tricky. With that said, we recommend starting with federal student loans if a student absolutely needs to borrow loans to pay for college. Federal student loans are government issued and they are generally lower interest rates as compared to private student loans. And you can see those rates online. In some cases, the government does pay the interest on these loans, specifically subsidized loans. So if a student has a sub loan, that the government is paying the interest on that loan while they're in school, taking more than 6 credits. Um, Federal student loans do not require a credit check. So any student who fills out the FAFSA application is going to be offered a federal student loan. It's their choice to accept it or not, but there is no credit check required, which is why every student is offered one. And the benefit for students who do borrow federal student loans is that these loans are eligible for loan forgiveness programs offered by the Department of Education, including teacher loan forgiveness and public service loan forgiveness, as well as some other types of loan forgiveness programs. They're also eligible for income-driven repayment plans, meaning that if an individual is having difficulty paying perhaps the standard repayment plan after graduation, there is an opportunity to adjust that payment amount. There are several different repayment plan options out there, which really bring an added benefit to federal student loans for those who need to borrow them. So let's take a look at, if you're a Penn State student, this is going to look very familiar. This is a screen grab of Line Path, and I want to help you get a lay of the land on where exactly would you see these different funding sources start to pop up, and how do you know what you're looking at, right? So online path, you will receive your financial aid award summary, and listed there will be your estimated billable expenses, things like tuition and room and board if you're living on campus. And below that, you're going to see your estimated financial aid, and that's going to include grants, scholarships, and any loans that have been made available to you. Personal savings and 529 plan account funds are not going to show up there because that's money that you are tapping into. Penn State doesn't know how much that is. You'll use that to pay as you see fit, but anything that's offered to you otherwise is going to pop up here. Let's zoom in a little bit closer in this section and specifically continuing deeper into this borrowed money, federal student loans. So the federal direct loan program for students and parents includes the loans that you see here on the screen. And you may have been offered these and have accepted these loans in the past. We've got direct subsidized, which I mentioned the government is managing that interest. It's taking care of the interest while you're in school. Unsubsidized loans, that interest is accruing from the time that the loan is issued. And then for students who are not undergraduate students, but who are pursuing a graduate level degree, there are graduate unsub and graduate plus loans that are made available to these students. Keep in mind, they're different than undergraduate loans in that they do require a credit check, but they come with the same kind of benefits as I described earlier. There's also something called a Parent Plus loan, and this is a loan that a parent may take out on behalf of their child to pay for college expenses. Please keep in mind that Parent Plus loans are taken out in the name of the parent, and they do require a credit check in order to be approved. Now, for students who have a parent who has applied for a Parent Plus loan, but they have been denied that loan, they are eligible to receive additional funding in student loans, which I'm going to explain a little bit more on the next slide. So when I say eligible for a little bit more funding, I'm talking about aggregate loan limits. So when we talk about aggregate loan limits, we are talking about the total lifetime limit for borrowing, the caps to the amount that you may borrow within your college career. And these are not annual limits, these are career limits. So for example, undergraduate students who are borrowing those direct subsidized and unsubsidized loans have a career limit, a maximum borrowing amount of $31,000. Independent undergraduate students, students who are active military veterans, who have dependents, who are 24 years of age or older. These students have a larger lifetime limit. They have up to $57,500 available to them. And remember when I mentioned earlier that dependent students whose parents apply for a Parent Plus loan and are denied are offered or do have accessible to them this increased aggregate limit of $57,500. You also see the graduate, professional, and medical graduate student aggregate limits upwards of $138,500 in direct loans, subsidized and unsubsidized. Please keep in mind that there might be a higher limit available in these cases, but that's going to be determined by financial aid offices. So this was a lot of really great information that I hope helps. I want to leave you all with some additional educational cost saving tips, some other ways that you can go about maximizing college while minimizing costs. And these include saving on tuition costs by taking summer classes, graduating early, graduating on time for sure, or early if you can. And it's easiest to do this when you meet regularly with your academic advisor and you're making a plan for your major of study and you're syncing that plan up with your financial plan and the budget that you've laid out for yourself. Here at Penn State, if you take more than 12 classes per semester, you're able to benefit from kind of like this flat rate, we'll call it, meaning that if you take more than 12 credits, you won't be charged for those additional those additional credits. So let's say you take 15 or 18 credits, you will only be charged for the 12, and then everything extra is included. And please make sure you're keeping an eye out for prerequisite classes when you're meeting with your academic advisor. That should hopefully come up and be clear that you don't miss them, because certainly if they're only offered on a yearly basis, it has the potential to put you in a bit of a pickle where you can't take the class on time, you might be delayed in graduation by an entire semester for that reason, and that can be certainly a costly oversight that you're going to want to avoid. So that's everything I got for you today on paying for college. I do, again, hope that this was helpful information. Certainly, if you have questions or are looking for more information, visit our website, financialliteracy.psu.edu, or shoot us an email at finlit@psu.edu. We'd love to hear from you and provide you support as best we can. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care.